But we'll go ahead and we'll start this breakdown of bot lane dynamics and everything, since we're already a couple minutes in and everything. So my friend Casey's probably going to be making fun of me.
No, I'm going to leave here in about 3 minutes.
Well, we're doing this as well. We just got back from playing bingo at a brewery.
Some of us were playing bingo.
That's true. That's actually true. Some of us. You were not playing bingo. I was playing bingo the whole time. I was playing your card and my card.
Yep.
Well, you just laughed the whole time. That's literally all you did was just laugh. You did nothing but laugh the entire time.
YOLO.
VGC. So the plan for tonight, we are going to talk about bot lane dynamics, focusing on the ADC role. So the main things that we're actually going to talk about tonight, we're going to play some ranked as well, but we're going to talk about power spikes and matchups, knowing your threat and positioning, zoning when you know you're stronger, and then when losing, play safer and letting them overextend, kind of explaining both of those situations. And then we're also going to explain about weaving auto attacks into the mix as well. And like I said, breaking down the ADC role. So like probably the main things, you're good. The main things I want to talk about, and we'll go over these in the videos. I have 4 videos that we're going to watch tonight with breaking down the ADC role. But there's a couple points that I kind of want to like bring out so that we can actually look out for these in the video as well.
I gotta go.
Oh, go pee.
No, I'm leaving.
Oh, you're
Bye.
leaving? See you, Casey. It was good hanging out.
Yep, thank you. Bye,
Yep.
guys.
Later.
God.
Close the little door when you leave.
Okay.
Thank you. So there's like 9 little points that I want to talk about, but then we're also going to talk about these kilo matchups before we watch the videos. So one of the things I want to talk about is, so like we were going to do ADC and support, but when I was starting to break this down and get everything ready, it was kind of just too much to do in one video. So I felt like it'd be better to actually break it up into 2 videos, 2 sessions instead, because I feel like it would be not doing you guys justice. And then also kind of like, so ADC this season has been probably my weakest role, but I still feel like from a micro and macro aspect, I still understand the role very well, but I've just been poor on my execution and everything. So we are going to watch some of my gameplay, but we're also going to watch other people's gameplay as well and break it down, simply just because I said, it used to be that ADC was my 3rd best role, but lately this season it's been my worst role, okay? So first, we're going to also talk a little bit about itemization as well, because I think that's a pretty key portion. So I'm going to go into this first video and everything right here, and we're going to break it down. So for this first video, what we're basically going to be talking about is understanding power spikes and also understanding matchups. So I think when it comes to being a good ADC, I think my first thought process is I think this is personally the worst role to rank up in, okay? Not because you can't rank up in it, but because every other role is individual skill-wise compliant. This is the only role in the game where you're impacted by how good of a player you have playing with you. You could be the best ADC, but if you have an absolutely dreadful support and the other team has a good ADC and an amazing support, you're probably going to lose the lane, even if you're the better player, just because that's just how it goes, okay? This game is actually a game that I'm playing as well. I'm playing this game with Kuriyami, so which a lot of you guys know him. And for this matchup, I kind of want to point out to you guys like the understanding of like understanding strength. So when I look at this matchup as well, I understand that like we're stronger early, but we're stronger early if we don't get like hooked. So I think a lot of times what you have to do immediately is understand like in the game, like who's stronger, who's weaker in the lane. Like you have to be really good at understanding matchups. So because we understood the matchup, we understand that like as long as we don't get like hard CC'd, we're able to like win any trade that goes in, okay? And so just like that, we have the trade, we get the first blood onto our ADC, okay? So right now we already know, we knew that we were stronger going in. So because we knew that we were stronger going in, we were able to immediately be aggressive, okay? So in order to be good at ADC, you need to understand the matchup, okay? If you have, example, if you're a Vayne, all right, and you're playing with a Sona, all right, and you're going against a Lux Caitlyn, well, then you have to understand the fact that this is going to be a passive farming lane for us. And you have to play passive. You have to be willing to give things up. Whereas in this lane, we understand that we're stronger, so we're going to continuously be aggressive. And if you can't like learn the matchups and everything, you're going to really struggle with moving forward as an ADC in this game and getting better. The other thing that like I kind of want to point out, so like in a lane like this, I'm going to pause it real fast. When you have a lane like this, even though we're stronger early in the beginning, we have to also recognize the kill potential and the lane loss potential, okay? So when you get into a lane, you need to ask yourself, what is the lane loss potential? And what do I mean by that? Like, so early game, the ADC is probably the weakest role in the entire game, exception of a few champions. There's a few champions that are really strong early in the game, but for the most part, ADCs are the most gold reliant, the most help needed champion in the entire game, hence why they have a support with them. And typically the support carries the early portion of the game for the ADC until the ADC gets strong. So what you need to identify is, as an ADC, is, okay, who is the threat in this lane? If the threat is the support, and probably the vast majority of the time, the threat will be the support, what you need to do is position yourself on the opposite side of the wave that the support is on, okay? And so that way, it puts you in a position to where like you're safer. So example, like right here, this is a very thin part of the wave, but imagine if the wave was full, Thresh is on the right-hand side of the wave, so your ADC would be on the left-hand side of the wave. And the reason why you'd want to hold positioning like that if the support is the main threat is because not only now does he have to try and hook you through minions or get his CC onto you through minions, it also is at a diagonal angle, which is going to be more difficult than if you're like at a side-by-side angle. And obviously this rotates, and like if you take the time to like, if you're going, like for example, if you're going against a Blitzcrank, if the Blitzcrank's on the right-hand side of the wave, we'll move to the left-hand side. If he moves to the right-hand side, then move to the left-hand side. If he stands in the middle, then stand right behind the wave. And you fluctuate side to side as you're holding the wave when you're in a wave where it's like it's a kill pressure. So like I said, this lane, we're stronger, but what we're doing is we're obviously utilizing the wave to manipulate our strength, to keep the advantage onto them, okay? And then a lot of it also comes with like understanding power spikes, because we're only stronger early than them, and then if the game continues to move forward, we lose strength because Thresh outscales me, and then Xayah and why am I brain farting on her name? The other ADC, I'm brain farting on her name, Kai'Sa. Kai'Sa kind of outscales as far as individual damage late game as well. Okay, so here's the next thing I want you to realize. When I talk about like understanding power spikes and everything, like we understand right now that like we're a lot stronger than they are. Xayah's 3-1 and 0, and then I'm currently, this stupid thing popping up, sorry. I'm currently 0-1 and 3, where Xayah's 0 and 2 and Thresh is 0-1 and 1. So we're looking for like immediate aggression every time that we're in lane in order to continue to snowball the wave, okay? And then anytime that we have aggression, we go right in. So this is like this matchup right here is a really good example of like understanding that we're strong. every time we basically get into lane, we're like immediately being aggressive towards the enemy team, like right away. All right. We're immediately being aggressive towards the enemy team. And we're going to talk about a couple different situations. So this one, like I said, basically what we're focusing on is like understanding our power spikes. Me and the ADC understand that we're stronger early. So because we understand that we're stronger early, we're being hyper aggressive right off the bat of the game. All right. But also, even though that we're stronger early, we also understand the kill potential of the enemy, of how they win the lane is through Thresh. So because of that, what we do is we cycle sides when we go in. And then anytime we go into a fight, we swap over our damage to the ADC to kill her really fast, okay? Like, that's basically how we end up dominating this game. And in this game, me and Yami absolutely shred them. Like, I mean, we absolutely shred them. I'm not going to show the whole game. This is just about the laning phase. We'll maybe do videos later on about after laning phase, but this is just going to be about laning phase and understanding, okay? And like I said, this is understanding like a lane where you have priority and you win the lane early, okay? And then like we're going to do some other ones as well. Let's see here. Here, we'll move this forward a little bit. I'm going to fast forward. So here we go. Right now, once again, this is the other thing I want to point out. This is what a lot of players do. So I want to point out what she's doing right now. She's playing passive. So many players, when they have a huge lead like we have, like she's got like 4 or 5 kills right now. But look how she's waiting for me. So many players don't wait because they're like, oh, I'm super strong, I can win. Instead, they wait. And as soon as we get in, as soon as we're there, we immediately go hyper aggressive once again, and we get the kills. Unfortunately, Lee Sin shows up, and we both die. But we understand we're stronger. As soon as we get in lane, we immediately go hyper aggressive, and we kill them once again. Okay? Give me a second here. And then I'm just going to show you once again. We get into lane. Once again, we understand that we're stronger. We also see that it's a 2v1. We hard push, and we're looking once again to either take tower or be hyper aggressive towards her. And so since it's just her, we push, we take the tower. Here I miscommunicated, otherwise we probably would have got a second kill, but that's just on me, okay? So there's some other things like kind of like pointing out in that game. One, notice how she didn't get cocky while she was ahead. So often players get really cocky. So like right before we had those last kills, she waited until I got there, then we tidal waved and basically killed both of them. Even though she understood that she was really strong and she probably could fight both of them, she knew it was better to wait for me to get up there, okay? Like she completely understood that it was better for me to wait to get up there in order to fight. Here's another one. This video is a really great example of understanding your threat, which we talked about this a little bit in the game that we were just watching with Thresh and positioning and everything. But this one actually shows it really well. I think this was the right one. Okay, so once again, you look at this lane, and in my opinion, it's actually a pretty even lane, okay? When you look at it. Caitlyn and Jhin are both extremely strong early. And then you also have the Pyke, who's pretty strong early. But Zoe's also decently strong early with her stun, okay? And so what thought process is going is like, okay, we have a pretty even lane. And everything's going into is, once again, positioning and understanding your kill threat, okay? The kill threat in this lane is Pyke. The kill threat isn't Jhin. Pyke is the one who can kill us. So what do we want to do in this lane? Look how the Caitlyn is positioning herself in a way where she can make impact on the wave and on the champions while poking, but keeping her on the opposite side of where the Pyke is, okay? So she's making it as difficult as possible for the Pyke to land any type of hook or any type of stun, because Pyke has to travel the maximum distance and through minions in order to make a play based on the positioning, okay? And this is all able to happen because we're taking the time to ask ourselves, okay, what is the kill potential, where's the threat, and how do we win this lane? We know we outscale this lane, so winning early isn't necessarily the most important thing, but playing the lane in order to win it is a better thing, okay? We'll also kind of like go about, I also want to talk about like cheese backs and everything as well. And the other thing I want you to notice in this, notice how like right now Pike's been completely ineffective. But watch here suddenly, like now we're staying on the same side as Pike. And what happens? Watch what's about to happen. Like you're about to see here pretty soon that I think it's coming up here pretty soon that Caitlyn basically isn't holding her opposite side like she has been the whole lane. And then you'll see things immediately change. Like everything was going perfectly fine for Caitlyn, and then things change because she doesn't hold the lane properly. Coming up here pretty shortly. Here she messed up. She should have went into the bush. If she would have went into the bush while auto-attacking, she would have killed her 100%. That was just not utilizing Caitlyn's passive very well, unfortunately. Let me back this up. Actually, here we go. Here, I did like this play because it was kind of like tempting them to stay, and they are able to get the kills. I also like how she walks around the minion and everything. They end up dying, but it was still a pretty nice play, so I just wanted to go through it. But Pike got 2 kills. They move forward again. All right, here we go. The other thing that you kind of need to understand is, so remember how I was just saying, like, this lane starts off pretty evenly because it's the 2 champions that they have. Like, they're both pretty strong early, but you also have to understand when you have to win lane and when you don't have to win lane. I think most players are always so focused on, like, I have to win lane, I have to win lane. That's not the case. There are certain champions you have to win lane with and certain champions you don't. So Caitlyn Zoe is going to outscale Jhin Pike in the long run, okay? And so she's played really passive this whole game, but like as you just saw right there, she's constantly fighting right off the bat. She's not scared to fight. It's not that she's playing scared, it's that she understands the matchup and realizes like, hey, we have to play safe. If the enemy makes a mistake, we capitalize on the mistake, but we don't have to force anything because we naturally win this based on scaling on the lane and the champions that we have. Here, unfortunately, the team just wasn't pushed well together and they jump in and kill her. But that was kind of unfortunate as well. The other thing that like you kind of have to realize like with ADC, understanding if like you're a scaling champion or if you're a immediate like brawling champion is whether or not you need to be a champion that needs to focus more on the farming side of things or if you need to focus more on like the team fighting side of things. So like, for example, like if you're a Draven, well, you probably need to focus more on team fighting than you're farming. If you're Vayne or Tristana or Jinx, well, you need to focus more on the farming side of things as well, okay? So I think this Caitlyn did a really great job of showing you guys like, what do I mean when I'm talking about like, basically understanding the kill threat in the lane and how to position, okay? Like the Pike was the threat. The Pike was, for the most part, pretty ineffective throughout the lane. He did get the 1 double kill, I think. But for the most part, they did a pretty good job at holding him back. Their couple kills is kind of like when they got greedy and overpushed and overextended and everything. But it all was able to basically happen from standing on the opposite side of the map. And the other thing is like they waited for enemy mistakes a lot of times when they made engages. Like when the Pike would try and make an engage, like he would make really risky engages because he's like trying to push through minions and get to the opposite side. So he had to make really all-out engages in order to just try and get something through. And so because that's a risky engage, it gives them advantage to wait for some type of mistake to happen. Yes, you definitely need to keep track of where the enemy jungler is, for sure. you definitely need to keep track of the enemy jungler. And then also, like, obviously there's itemization and everything. And then there's also, like, we'll kind of go into this, playing safe but not taking yourself out of the fight as well. Now, this game right here that we're about to go into, I really like this game. Okay, there's some really great things about this game right here. So the first thing that I like about this game is immediately they realize it's a 2v1. So the first mistake they kind of make in this is they start to push the wave. But what they do so well is they, once again, what did we talk about? Understanding power spikes. Kai'Sa's super strong early, but she also scales well. And she has a Soraka with her. So as long as the Soraka can land her S1, they have infinite sustain, okay? And they don't have a lot of kill pressure in the lane because Jhin does a lot of damage, but it's kind of slow damage. And Malphite isn't really strong until, like, he hits basically level 5. So, like, they have way more kill pressure in the lane, okay? So what do? They're zoning off the gold and zoning off the experience as well, okay? This is realizing, like, hey, we're stronger, and if you're going to try and farm, you're going to trade some of your health for it. Now, what they did wrong is they were unfortunately poking the minions. There should have been 0 poking of the minions because the enemy also understood that they were weaker, and they understood they were stronger, and they immediately are being aggressive. And then here's the other thing. If you're going to be aggressive like this, I want to point something out to you. Look at the map right now and look right by the enemy blue. You see that ward? You need to have a ward basically right there if you're going to be aggressive like this. And see, this ward gives them the safety because it allows you to see into the river and see basically if the jungler is going to come in through and possibly try and gank. All right? And they're hyper abusing their early strength. And the other nice thing is because they have a healing support, typically you don't always want to trade health for gold. They can be a little bit more greedy with trading health for gold because they have a Soraka who can eliminate mistakes. And once again, immediately going all in. Exhaust, burnt, flash, burnt. Or I'm sorry, flash, burnt, not exhaust. Kai'Sa tried to exhaust him to kill him. Almost got it. But they're able to completely control this lane and push them off of the farm. Now, one thing they could have kind of done is tried to set up a cheese back. When you know you're this much stronger than the enemy, hard push the wave. So this is the third wave right here. They were in a perfect position, and this is a big mistake that a lot of players make. So a lot of times what happens is you have a situation like this where somebody's super strong and they're winning the lane really hard, and you have them pushed up to the tower, and that's a great thing. It's a great thing because they're losing some farm because of the potentially losing some farm, unless they're a good farmer, losing some farm because of the tower aggro. What they should have done right here is realize the game's getting a little bit later in time. And so obviously the Rengar starts red, so it's getting close to that. You have another wave about to push. They should have hard pushed this wave coming up here. And what would have happened is they would have had a great situation that the wave, because they could have both cleared this instantly before before their wave reached it. They could have crashed the wave into the enemy turret, and then they could have gotten a cheese back in. And basically what that is, that's where you are able to lose no minions or maybe 1 minion. And they're probably going to lose more than 1 minion because there's a tower attacking the minions, and most likely they're going to make a mistake. Possibly not. This is like really high. This is like Challenger, high GM, ELO. So they may not miss a single minion, but you never know. But instead what they do is they continue to play aggressive. They don't hard push the wave. This is like, once again, not understanding cheese backs, okay? Now, the good thing that I want to point out here that red team is doing, I love this game display here because it gives such good information. It shows you both sides. So, like, if you're strong, this is how you play. But it also shows if you're weak. So the red team, Malphite and Jhin, are playing super careful. And what they're doing is they're just holding the wave right here as well. Because the Kai'Sa's not being smart enough to crash it. Jhin is not allowing the wave to be crashed. And the Kai'Sa could crash it, but she doesn't know not to. And what they're doing is they're keeping the lane in a position where it makes them susceptible to a gank, because this is a super easy lane to gank. Kai'Sa, other than her quick little invisible movement speed, no escape really, and Soraka has really bad escape as well. So like this gives you both examples. So even though you're getting super owned in lane, you can still come to a position where it allows you to turn the lane around. And so now they're low in health. They just got a really good gank in, and they're able to take possession of the lane again. Okay, and gold and or level advantage is about the same as well. Okay, so that was like a perfect example. Like if you're in a situation where you're like, man, my support sucks, and this Soraka and Kai'Sa are absolutely owning me, a lot of times players will get really disappointed. But all you have to do is what this Jhin and Malphite did for a long time. You don't have to win so many times, like I said. And this is a lane where the Jhin and Malphite need to kind of win early. I mean, the Jhin needs to win early in order to outscale the Kai'Sa. The Malphite doesn't have to win early in order to outscale just because he's Malphite. All he has, he's a no-skill champion. You push R and you win a team fight. But what you can do in a situation like this gives you a really good example of like, okay, my support may not be good enough, or we may not be good enough to beat these guys in lane. But what we can do is manipulate the wave in a way that continuously gives us an advantage, even though we're at a disadvantage. And what the advantage is right now is Soraka and Kai'Sa are hard pushed up and overextended. Okay, that's the advantage that they're giving. Now, they have good vision, so they could technically eliminate this advantage, but the Kai'Sas didn't play smart. Instead of running away, decides to try and go in on this Rengar for no reason, and then they lose so much of the advantage that they just spent building. Just like basically in a second, all that advantage is gone. They lost their chance for the quick cheese back and everything. And now they're just like, the advantage is basically gone. It's back to kind of like an even lane. Jin's able to put out his traps, which is going to make it harder to push the wave as well. So it's just, like I said, I love this. And then once again, now they're being over aggressive. They're being patient. And what happens? They get the kill. The Kai'Sa is clearly the better player. 100% clearly the better player. This Jhin is not as good as this Kai'Sa. Like, just watching the game, it's easy to see that. It doesn't take a genius to see that the Kai'Sa is a better ADC than the Jhin. But what happened? Jin's winning lane. Why? Because Jhin understands that, like, hey, I understand the matchup. I understand that I have to win lane early, and we're not winning lane early. But I also understand, even though like I'm losing and my support's not helping me at all, and there's nothing I can do, I understand that I can still use wave management in order to create an advantage. And they literally did it twice. And then the Kai'Sa, once again, knowing that she's better, goes into a position of being cocky and basically loses her lane. She lost a big lane priority when she tried to fight the Rengar. Then she started like hard engaging and then got jumped on by the Rengar, and they kill her right away. Okay, but the enemy team did a great job basically by like understanding the matchup, understanding that like, hey, this Kai'Sa is being overly aggressive, communicating with the team in order to create a situation where like, hey, I'm not as good and I can't beat you, but I can beat you with teamwork as well. And like the Kai'Sa didn't do good, like she's like I said, so unfortunate because like I said, she's clearly the better player, but because she didn't use her cheese back to extend her lead more, all these little mistakes that the Kai'Sa made turned into basically her now like basically losing the lane. And now she's dead again, like right here. Oh no, she did live. She did live. But they're basically like, the red team is starting to snowball their lead. We'll also talk about, in the next video, I want to talk about playing safe but not taking yourself like out of position. And like right here, hard pushing, this is actually the right call, like hard push the wave and everything. Something that a lot of people really struggle with. But yeah, like I said, when you're losing like this, playing safer a lot of times will cause your enemy to make a mistake, because especially when they're better, what will usually happen is the enemy will start to get, or your enemy will start to get to a point where like they get frustrated because like, man, I'm so much better than this kid, but he's playing like a wuss, and then eventually they'll be over aggressive and make a mistake. And it's exactly what this Kaiser did. So I said, this was such a good video because you got to see like, this is how you dominate the lane and how you're supposed to set it up. But you also got to see how they made mistakes and threw it. And you also got to see how the Jhin was patient in order to create a situation that was conducive for the team to now win the lane and take control of the lane. I said, super interesting. And like, as you can see now, like I said, they're just the stronger lane now. It's really cool. It's really cool to see. And this is all because of understanding wave management and lane dynamics. Neither player in that did anything flashy. There was nothing spectacular. There was no crazy challenger skill outplay. It was just understanding wave management, understanding lane dynamics, and understanding how to position yourself in a way to give yourself an advantage. It was all decision making. It wasn't, I'm a challenger, I'm a 60, because this is high grandmaster. These players are like 61 points plus. So these are challengers and grandmasters in that game that we just watched. It isn't, I'm a super skilled player, and so because of that, I can do these crazy mechanical plays that you can't because you're emerald, diamond, or master. It was all decision making. Decision making 100% changed everything about that lane. Give me just 1 second here. Now, this matchup right here, what I kind of want you guys to focus on is understanding weaving auto attacks in between. And the other thing that kind of like I want you guys to kind of focus on is also positioning yourself in a way where you're safe, but not positioning yourself in a way where you're taking yourself out of the team fight and out of the fight, okay? So often what will happen is a player will run away to get safe, but they'll move in a way that takes them out of a way of being able to impact the fight, okay? It's super common. And honestly, it's one of the biggest ways, it's one of the biggest things that separates good players from bad players. Players who know how to position themselves in a way to become safe, but not position themselves in a way where they're no longer able to impact the fight. This Caitlyn basically does a really good job at weaving auto attacks in between farming. So what you have to understand is like, once again, it's lane matchup. This lane is actually really similar, okay? Kaiser's really strong early. Caitlyn's really strong early, but Caitlyn has the advantage of range. Blitzcrank has an all-in pull. And then Nautilus wants to go all in. So if Nautilus gets pulled in, that allows him to lock people down, which is an advantage for them. So like it's a pretty even lane matchup. And you can't really, like the lane naturally should be really even. It should be a skill-based matchup. And the only reason why Caitlyn wins this lane so well is as you watch, she constantly does little trade after little trade. Little auto attack here, back up. Little auto attack there, back up. The whole lane phase, you'll just see it. She's constantly putting little auto attacks. Like that fight right there, if she didn't spend so much time putting little auto attack trades, she dies and they don't get first blood. But they get the first blood because she did a better job at weaving auto attacks in between. The Kaiser does more damage early than the Caitlyn, but the Caitlyn understands that she can beat her by utilizing in-between auto attacks as well. I also, if I remember correctly, you're going to get a really good example of a a cheese back in this one, I think is what it was. There it is, once again. Farming, auto-attacking. Farming, auto-attacking. It's a huge thing. Like, a lot of people think it doesn't make a little difference, one tiny little auto-attack, but it makes a big difference over time. Because if you can get these small trades where you take 0 damage and they take, look at this. She's half health, she's full health. She's put in little trades in between farming that have now given her, she's taken small little micro advantages and has turned it into a very large macro advantage. Now Kai'Sa doesn't have her plant anymore. She still has her plant, so she can always retreat and get the plant and reheal, and Kai'Sa's half health. Okay? Also, by doing that, she's in a position where she can rotate faster, whereas the enemy has to rotate slower. It gives her the ability to control the momentum of the map, which is huge. It's so big. Now, right here, I don't think the Kai'Sa should have pushed this lane like she did right here. She should have waited. Keeping it steady was a better thing. And then once again, there it is again. Weaving in auto attacks as she farms. Like just such the AD scene in this matchup is like perfect Caitlyn play. It's literally like perfect Caitlyn play because this is exactly how Caitlyn is supposed to play. And now she gets the kill. She gets exhausted. She's staying back in a way to where Nautilus and Kai'Sa can't hard engage on her, but she's staying close enough to where she can basically still make an impact to the fight. She's staying safe, but also staying back far enough to where she can't be killed. Here, this was really good. Honestly, I think the Blitz misplayed this a little bit. If the Blitz wouldn't have flashed away, maybe they kill her. The Blitz should have stayed and helped kill because if the Blitz also stays, the Kha'Zix does a little bit less damage and maybe Caitlyn kills him right there and then there's 2 more auto attacks on him. So I think I actually kind of blame that on the Blitzcrank personally. That's my personal opinion right here. Now here's a good example of getting a quick back in right here. Kai'Sa should immediately hard push this. Let's say if she didn't just back, hard push this as fast as you can, back up, and then immediately back. This would be a great example of being able to put in a quick cheese back, which she is doing right now. So I think she just backed, but it probably just gave the amount of gold. The other thing that you really need to focus on when you're ADC is understanding how much gold you need in order to hit your next power spike. So often, players, even at high elo, they will back when they're just like 100 or 200 gold right before an item. It may not be a great time for you to back right away. It might be actually better for you to stay and get another wave versus backing, walking then all the way back to lane, get a little bit of gold just to walk, then to back and walk all the way back to lane again. Check your gold of the item you need before you back, especially when you know you're close. So often players do not do that, and it creates huge momentum disadvantages for you in lane. Huge momentum disadvantages. And so right here, Caitlyn likes it. They know they're a lot stronger. They know it's a 2v1. They're immediately being aggressive. They're immediately pushing and controlling the wave and controlling the lane. And all this, like I said, from a lane that should have been basically even. If anything, I personally like Kai'Sa Nautilus more than Blitzcrank. It's not like this Blitzcrank has made crazy hooks either, but the Caitlyn understanding her champion and understanding how to weave in auto attacks in between completely changes everything. And then here, they know they're stronger, so they know they can be hyper aggressive right away, which is exactly what they do. Because they know they're stronger, there's immediate aggression. There's no like, oh, maybe we'll be aggressive, maybe we won't be aggressive. It's just come into the lane, immediately we're going to kill you. Boom, both dead. And now it's a lane that should be even, but instead is completely one-sided, all because of understanding how to weave auto attacks into in between farming. And it completely changes the whole lane, and they kill the tower, and they basically win it. All right? So that's kind of like here we go. That's kind of like some of the lane dynamic stuff that I kind of wanted to like show out to you guys and like break down to like understanding, like, because I think if you can get like a basic understanding on some of those things, it'll make a big difference for you. And I'm sure a lot of you guys do those things already, but like how consistently do you do them? That's the different thing. How consistently do you do those things in every single game that you play? Do you do it some games? Do you do it every game? Or do you only do it games where you have a good support? And then when you don't have good support, are you able to do what the Jhin did and be like, okay, my support's basically useless, and this ADC and this support are way out damaging and way out playing me. I'm going to manipulate the wave in a way that allows me to gain an advantage even though I'm technically behind. It's a team advantage. It may not be an individual advantage for you, but it's a game advantage. So many times people forget that this is a team game. This is a team game, all right? Other things that I just want to kind of point out, a little bit about itemization. I can't do like a super direct itemization because obviously there's so many ADCs and so many different build paths for different ADCs. So I'm just going to talk about a few little basic things. So like one thing I kind of want to talk about is actually this item right here. Lord Dominik's versus Mortal Reminder versus Grudge. Okay? Because a lot of times I see people build Mortal Reminder when we don't need Mortal Reminder. Okay? If the team is hyper squishy, okay, and you're like fairly ahead, you don't need Mortal. If you're like ahead, okay, and the team's squishy, but they do have some healing, you don't necessarily need Mortal Reminder, okay? If they're really squishy, sometimes Lord Dominik's is actually better because, yeah, you can negate some of their healing, but the critical strike you'll get on top of the armor pen with Lord Dominik's will outdo any damage that the anti-heal is going to do. Because the amount of healing they're getting from their healing versus the amount of critical damage they're going to take from a Lord Dominik's, if you have like 3 crit items, it's way different. Now, if they're kind of tanky or semi-tanky, then yeah, maybe Lord Dominik's. Or if they have tons of healing champions as well, that's a little bit different. Now, if they have no healing champions, but tons of mobility champions, and they're like fairly tanky, that's kind of like when you go Grudge, okay? Another thing that I see like a lot of players hardly ever build Phantom Dancer. Like it's so rare I see players build Phantom Dancer. Like if you're behind and you have a static shift in your kit and you're behind, don't build static shift. Okay, usually static shift's like a second item. Don't freaking build static shift. Build Phantom Dancer. Yes, you're going to probably lose a little bit of damage, but the utility and the safety that Phantom Dancer is going to give you by giving you that shield is going to add value of helping you get back into the game. Okay, it's going to really help you get back into the game. So like, that's one thing I see. Players are always so focused on like damage. You need to ask yourself like, okay, like, is me having damage right now the key to us winning the game, or is me staying alive the key to us winning the game? You have to ask yourself these questions, okay? You have to ask yourself these questions. So those are a couple of things that like I kind of wanted to point out for the ADC matchup, or just ADC lane in general. Did you guys have any questions about any of that at all? I'm going to actually